Good morning, everyone. And on behalf of HRAI, this is Caroline Chaiko, Manager of Environmental Services and Divisions. And I'd like to welcome you to today's annual meeting of the HRAI Wholesalers Division.
I'm Bill Davis, the Chair of the Wholesalers Division and Vice President and General Manager for Echo Heating Products Limited. The agenda for today's AGM is on the screen for your review. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 11:38 Eastern Time. I confirm that with those present today and proxies received, we have constituted a quorum for the meeting. I will now ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the August 26th, 2019 AGM. These were provided in advance of the AGM in the package that you received. This motion's been moved by Chris Han and seconded by Bruce Passmore. So we'll open up the vote. It'll be open for 20 seconds, so please go ahead and cast your vote now. The vote will close in 5. Okay, thank you for voting. We're tabulating the results and we'll have that in a few seconds for you. Okay, results are in, the motion passed. Now let's talk about the HRAI and the Wholesalers Division. A former mentor of mine would always start meetings by saying, "Tell me something good." I like that, and so to start with something positive, our membership, the lifeblood of our association, continues to grow. I would like to extend my sincere welcome to all of our new members, and I appreciate those of you who continue to be members. As a wholesaler, I'm constantly thinking of how I can add value to the supply chain, both upstream with our manufacturer vendor partners and downstream with our contractor customers, as well as other key influencers. Companies like ours are in constant evolution, and macro trends like digitization and global pandemics are accelerants, not the cause. To borrow from Simon Sinek, these are not unprecedented times. 100 years ago, stables and farriers gave way to auto repair garages and car mechanics. More recently, video rental gave way to streaming services. At a fundamental level, people continue to travel and consume entertainment. Just the way they were doing it changed. The need to recognize and embrace change will always be a key component of success. We as wholesalers must seek new and improved ways of adding value, while recognizing that many of the old ways are still good too. While products may change, customer service, expertise, knowledge, and relationships will continue to be how we stay relevant and an important part of the overall HVAC and R supply chain. We've all borne witness to the dramatic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our industry over the last 7 months. It's important to remember that no one saw this coming. There's been no script for wholesalers to follow when it comes to reacting to and dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We've all been writing a new script each and every day. But given the industry's ability to adapt quickly to changes, I have no doubt we will emerge from this difficult period with a more secure and resilient supply chain in tune with whatever the new normal is. And whatever it is, we all need to continue to add value. Skills and competencies within all of our organizations will need to be upgraded. The first-rate training that the HRAI is committed to offering to all member companies is one of the most valuable aspects of the HRAI. By partnering with the Association Education Alliance, the AEA, and the University of Innovative Distribution, the UID, we were able to offer members superior learning opportunities through a series of webinars in key competency areas, including sales, operations, and leadership. UID is offering year-round complimentary webinars. HRAI also worked alongside AEA members to commission a white paper on the challenges facing distribution organization in recruiting for vacancies. This year, we will work on a paper concerning transportation for the distribution industry. There have been changes in the Canadian HVAC&R industry equipment shipments as well, which is shown in the results from this year's HRAI statistics program that show the growth in air handlers, ductless splits, and commercial air conditioners, and a modest decline for shipments of unit heaters, chillers, residential air conditioners, and residential furnaces. The regulatory landscape has changed and will surely continue to change as well. And the HRAI also remains committed to representing the industry's interests at all levels of government. It's really important that we continue to have the full support of all of our member companies. My ask to you today is to commit to being a champion of the HRAI within your organization. Encourage active engagement amongst all levels of your staff to take advantages of the services that HRAI has to offer at both the national and the local level. We are all stronger and better when we're in this together, supporting the HVAC&R industry. We will continue to strive to create a better business environment for our members. This means focusing our efforts in 3 areas: government relations, strategic alliances, and communications. Thank you for the trust that you put in me to chair the Wholesalers Division. I would like to thank the Wholesale Board for their dedication to the HRAI and the progress of the HVAC in our industry. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. I would now like to introduce the chair of the HRAI, Dennis Kazina, who's prepared a video for us today. Let's take a look.
Hello, my name is Dennis Kazina, and I am the current chair of HRAI. I have been associated with HRAI for over 25 years, serving on various committees and acting as chair for both the CMPX and the Manufacturers Board of Directors. It's been mostly an enjoyable ride. I do have mixed emotions as I pass the torch to Rob Flipsy as your new incoming chair of HRAI. When I took the role of chair just over 1 year ago, I assumed to be a year filled with normal activities. I had a number of things that I was hoping to accomplish during my time as chair, including growing our national footprint and building stronger relationships with other like-minded associations in Canada. My first few months as chair were quite fruitful. We were able to create a substantial partnership with HRAI, and we built a federal government relations presence co-funded by HRAI. We entered into talks with other associations across the country. Transparency to members has been a focus over my term, and I am pleased to report that the culture at HRAI continues to nurture open dialogue between staff, volunteers, members, government, and other stakeholders. Just in this past year, many members were actively involved in meetings with government and on various committees. Currently, we're working to help solve training issues for field technicians in how to safely handle refrigerants that are flammable. Certainly, the strength of HRAI is in its membership. An engaged and active membership is crucial for the long-term success of our sector. One of the primary goals at HRAI is to effectively disseminate and deliver information about HRAI's initiatives and the industry as a whole on a timely basis. We have increased our social media presence and moved our newsletter to a weekly cycle. I am pleased to report these efforts are paying off as our communication effectiveness score continues to improve. I was also pleased to see HRAI adding new members. We were on track to grow both membership and revenues versus the prior year. More importantly, we were adding new members in all regions of the country. On the government relations front, we have focused our efforts with a 4-point plan. First, build the resources needed to be an effective voice for the HVACR industry with governments at the federal, provincial, and municipal level. Second, develop the capability of the association to engage both with the political and administrative channels of government across the country. Third, streamline the areas of focus for the association's government relations work to guide activities. And finally, ensure that HRAI members are more fully engaged in government relations work of the association, sharing the workload and getting more members involved. We know that developing effective government relations is a marathon and not a sprint. Martin Limas will be speaking to you shortly to give you a deeper look into the work that he and his team have been engaged with. Before March of 2020, I felt my time as chair had been fruitful, and for the most part, non-eventful. In fact, most of the objectives we had set for the year have been either achieved or were well positioned to be accomplished by the end of the fiscal year. Then the pandemic became a reality. We were just 10 days away from CMPX 2020 when the full brunt of the virus was found to be active in Canada. CMPX was a sold-out event with over 800 booths. Plus, we expected to have approximately 15,000 people attend the show over the 3 days. By the time of the actual event, the province of Ontario was in a full-blown lockdown. This caused us at first to postpone and then to cancel the CMPX show and move the event to March 2022. I must admit, these were very interesting times for CMPX. I'd like to thank the CMPX committee, Sandy McLeod, the HRAI staff and board, along with Ralph Supa of CIPH and their board, in helping to navigate through these challenging times. The support of many of our key suppliers and exhibitors also helped make a difficult situation manageable. On the COVID-19 situation, more generally, the HRAI management team and the board acted very quickly to ensure that HRAI's viability in the longer term. We also positioned HRAI to be active with government during this new state of emergency. The strategy was rethought, meetings canceled, and costs were cut where it made sense to do so. The focus of the team was to ensure the HVACR industry in Canada was considered an essential service during the Canada-wide shutdown. It was partly due to the efforts of the government relations team at HRAI that our sector was allowed to continue to function throughout the pandemic. HRAI did not let the pandemic slow our efforts to serve you, our members. We do understand that to stay relevant in the longer term, HRAI must continue to build its value proposition on a national scale. While we deal with the new realities, this has meant that there will be fewer in-person meetings and large-scale events like CMPX and our annual conference, which both have been pushed out to later dates. We will utilize technology in order to continue to offer value to members. We were able to pivot quickly and offer much of our training curriculum via digital offerings. We have increased our use of social media to keep members informed and to have moved many of our meetings to a digital platform. These efforts seem to be effective in the unusual times we are experiencing, and it is the right thing to do. To be sure we're meeting your needs and to measure member satisfaction, we do survey 500 members every 3 months and have been doing this now for over 2 years. Our satisfaction levels continue to rise, and with this feedback, we understand that you want HRAI to be more active in all regions of the country with improved communications and better government relations at the regional level. We continue to make investments in communications, member outreach, as well as government relations. One of the concerns facing HRAI's board of directors during these unusual times is the financial viability of the association. Fortunately, our reserve situation is strong, and before the impact of COVID-19, we were trending to show year-over-year growth in membership and educational revenues. When coupled with the spending reductions put in place in March, it has allowed us to post a considerable surplus for our year, which ended this past June. Much of the financial pressure will continue into this coming year as we deal with softer than normal renewals and an educational curriculum that will enter the fall being 100% digitally delivered. We continue to monitor financials at HRAI as you would do in your own operations. We are confident that revenues will build slowly and our reserves will be replenished back to pre-pandemic levels over the next 2 years. Normally, our annual meeting is a 3-day event where we would hand out several awards to recognize volunteers who have contributed to the industry. This year, with no in-person meetings, we'll be handling these awards virtually. Watch the newsletter, social media, and the HRAI website for these awards that will be given to active industry members. One award that I have the pleasure of announcing is the Merit Award. This is HRAI's Pinnacle Award. This award is given to an industry representative to recognize their outstanding contributions in the development and in the progress of HRAI and to the Canadian HVACR industry. The Merit Award this year goes to Dave Wyson of Blue Flame Heating and Air Conditioning. David has been a strong supporter of HVACR industry organizations, particularly HRAI. He started his involvement with HRAI with the Greater Toronto chapter, where he has served on the chapter executive for many years, including the position of chapter president. He also served on the HRAI Ontario Regional Council and the HRAI Contractors Board of Directors, and as chair of the HRAI Board of Directors. Currently, he is the past chair of the Contractors Board and serves on the HRAI Board of Directors as past chair. After my closing remarks, we will hear a few words from David. In closing, I am pleased to report that even with the big curveball called COVID-19 tossed into the mix during my tenure as chair, it's been a successful year. I feel lucky and I feel blessed to have a great board of directors and also a strong HRAI leadership team along with a dedicated staff. I would also like to thank those members who have stepped up and became more active during my tenure. I'd also like to thank my employer, Emerson, who has allowed me the time and supported me throughout my involvement with HRAI over the past 25 plus years. There is a saying that I thought was fitting when describing the significant challenges faced by our industry and HRAI over the past several months. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I know that HRAI will be stronger and will be better in the years ahead. I'm really pleased that we have been able to keep our focus on building stronger relationships with government at all levels, even during these difficult times. Our direction, our strategic plan is solid. HRAI is well positioned to meet the future challenges that our industry will encounter. Rob Flipsy is the current chair of the Contractors Board of Directors and is your new incoming HRAI chair. He is a native of British Columbia and a senior member of the Ainsworth Group of Companies. Rob will be communicating with members regularly in the coming months. I will stay on the board as past chair for 1 year to help assist Rob and the other board members in any way that I can. It's certainly been an interesting year, to say the least. Thank you for your ongoing support.
Thank you, Dennis, for those kind words. When I was first informed of this great honor of being this year's recipient of the HRAI Merit Award, my first thought was that I was standing on the shoulders of giants. I could only have progressed and succeeded in this industry thanks to the amazing work of those dedicated leaders who have come before me. As I look through the names of those who have previously received this prestigious award, I am humbled and deeply respectful of this recognition. I've enjoyed my participation with HRAI at all levels of the organization, from chairing the Greater Toronto Area chapter to eventually chairing the association. It has been an incredibly fun and rewarding ride. I've always encouraged members to give back to this marvelous group and reap the benefits that come with volunteering your time and knowledge for the good of our industry and its customers. I want to thank the staff at HRAI who have been extremely supportive of me during my journey. Through my years on the contractor and HRAI boards, I have had the pleasure to work with a wonderful number of dedicated people from all walks of our industry, and I thank them for their contributions and assistance. I'm sorry that HRAI's annual flagship event needed to be switched to a virtual format this year. The unprecedented and terrible scourge of COVID-19 has changed all that we took for granted around us. I look forward to the time in the future when we can again all come together as colleagues and friends to celebrate the accomplishments of our industry. I am proud that HRAI and the many HVACR companies are playing a leading role in offering home comfort to people now isolated in their dwellings and implementing air quality solutions for commercial buildings to ensure a safe and healthy working environment. This isn't the end of the road for me at HRAI. I still hope to continue contributing in many ways to our thriving organization. I look forward to the ongoing challenge of working with skilled individuals, advancing the boundaries of our knowledge, and forging strong bonds across the many diverse sectors of our industry. Thank you again for this incredible honor.
Well, thank you very much, Dennis, for that great message, and congratulations to Dave Weisham on your award. So I'd like to remind everyone, we do have a couple of more votes coming up, and if you could stay logged into the Lumi software, that would be great. So maybe if you want to take a minute now, if you have logged out, to log back into the software platform. Okay. And so if you have any questions, again, I'd encourage you to put it in the Q&A box on your control panel, and all questions will be answered at the end of the meeting. So now I would like to call on Frank Dicedue, the Director of Operations, and he's going to provide you with a financial review. So Frank, I'd invite you to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Today I'll be providing a high-level overview of the audited financials of HRAI for the year ended June 30, 2020. Each of you should have received a copy of the audited financials in your AGM packages. Let's start with a review of the Statement of Operations, or more commonly known as the income statement. Although HRAI was hit with a difficult final quarter due to the impacts of COVID, which I'll discuss shortly, the year had a number of noteworthy highlights. Some revenue highlights include membership revenue surpassed prior year by 95,000 or 9%. This is a new membership revenue record for HRAI, representing 1,161 members. And although year-end results for course registration was down from prior year, HRAI's ability to quickly pivot to virtual training for all our certification courses in April 2020 allowed us to significantly reduce the impact of the cancellation of all in-class training. Another highlight for year in June 2020 is the $134,000 in funding received from the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, or CEWS, which helped to improve our year-end results. This revenue is reflected in the miscellaneous income. In terms of significant impacts to the financial results for year-end June 2020, the greatest was the cancellation of CMPX 2020. Total revenue of $19,000 from CMPX came predominantly from interest income from the CMPX bank account, with $514,000 in sunk, non-recoverable, and non-transferable show costs. The net impact to HRAI from the cancellation of the show was a $495,000 loss. Also impacted by COVID-19 were the sales of education materials, which became non-existent in the last quarter of the year, normally a period of the highest sales. This revenue is down over $42,000 or 8% from prior year. And although not a result of COVID-19, another area impacting the financials of year-end June 2020 was the cancellation of the rebate programs offered by the IESO that occurred in May 2019. This represented $615,000 in contract revenues in prior year's results, which are not part of this year's results. In terms of expenses, a number of cost-cutting measures were quickly implemented when COVID hit in March. These initiatives mainly impacted staff salaries and benefits, but helped to offset the financial impacts caused by COVID. Other significant operational cost impacts, both positive and negative, were the investment in educational research and development, as well as strategic HR initiatives, totaling $327,000, which is $225,000 higher than prior year. A new contract with Impact Public Affairs for government and stakeholder relations support in BC and Quebec increased regional staffing costs by $30,000, but provided HRAI with significantly improved representation in both these regions. Professional fees were lower by $46,000 from prior year, with reduced spending in legal, auditing, and human resources support. Divisional expenses were also down from last year by approximately $30,000, mainly in reduced travel and meeting costs in all divisions, with the increased use of virtual meetings and the elimination of travel costs in the last quarter. So the final results of the fiscal year ended June 2020 was a net loss of $635,000. Once again, the main impact of these results was the cancellation of the 2020 CMPX show, which contributed $495,000 to HRAI's year-end loss. That wraps up the summary of the statement of operations. We'll now move on to the statement of financial position, also known as the balance sheet. The greatest impact, once again, on this statement is the CMPX show. The balances for both cash and short-term investments were significantly higher last year, with the 2020 show ramping up a year ago. By year-end June 2020, 80% of the exhibitor fees were refunded, with only 20% of the exhibitors choosing to hold their deposits for the 2022 show. These refunds caused the temporary bank indebtedness balance of $404,000 for CMPX. Accounts receivable also increased by $247,000 at year-end June 2020 for the HST recoverable from CRA, brought about by the refunds provided to the CMPX exhibitors. Under current liabilities, accounts payable and deferred revenue are both significantly reduced, once again, due mainly to CMPX. Prior year figures in both these categories included unrealized or deferred revenues for the 2020 show, as well as significant increases in accounts payable for show expenses. 2020 unearned membership dues are lower than prior year end as a result of the delay in the annual membership renewal process. This process normally begins in early May of each year, but HRAI postponed the launch to early July, taking into consideration the financial impact COVID had on our current and potential new members. Despite the delay, existing members continue to receive support and services from HRAI into the current membership year, even though no dues had been collected. In terms of net assets, internally restricted net assets increased year over year, with $491,000 transferred from unrestricted reserves for HRAI board-approved funding of industry development, educational R&D, and HR strategic initiatives and projects, of which 327 of these funds were invested during the year. To summarize, though financially impacted by the cancellation of CMPX 20 and COVID-19, HRAI continues to maintain well-managed assets, liabilities, and net assets with adequate funding and reserves, and has also implemented cost-saving initiatives to help weather the current and long-term impacts of COVID-19. That concludes my review of the 2019-2020 audited financial results. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature on your control panel, and we will address them at the end of the meeting. So now with the review of the financials completed, we'll now move on to the approval of the auditors for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. I would now like to make a motion to approve the HRAI auditors Welch LLP. This motion has been moved by Alex Gibbs and seconded by Charles Abiad. We will now open the voting. Please cast your votes in the next 20 seconds. We'll close the vote in 5 seconds. Voting is now closed. Thank you for your patience. We're tabulating the results. Thank you very much. The motion has been passed. I would now like to welcome Bill Davis to take us to the next item on the agenda, which is the election of the slate of directors. Bill, please turn on your mic and your video.
Thank you, Frank. I'd like to present you with the HRAI slate of directors and the Wholesalers Divisional slate of directors. I'd like to put forth a motion to approve the 2020-2021 HRAI Board of Directors and the Wholesalers Division Board of Directors as presented. The motion has been moved by Steve Wilson and seconded by Chris Hahn. We'll now move on to the voting. Please cast your vote. The vote will be open for 20 seconds. Five seconds left. Okay, the poll is closed. We're going to tabulate the results and we'll be back in a moment. Okay, the motion is passed. So thank you, everyone. This ends the formal component of the AGM. We're now going to move on to some updates. I will now welcome Martin Lemus, VP Government and Stakeholder Relations, to update us on HRAI's government relations. Martin, please turn on your mic and your video.
Thank you, Bill. And good morning, good afternoon to everyone in the meeting. As we frequently stated, one of the primary goals of HRAI is to be the voice of the HVACR industry in Canada. Well, let me just begin by saying that being that voice became a little more complicated this year. The good news is that the adaptations we've made have put HRAI in a stronger position with governments and stakeholders across Canada than we've ever been in before. In spite of, and also because of the COVID pandemic, this past year has been an extraordinarily productive year for HRAI in its government relations activities. In fact, there is far more to report on here than the available time will allow. So I will invite you to look elsewhere for more detailed information on the issues and initiatives that matter to your company. Our weekly newsletter is probably the best place to start. For now, I will focus on a high-level overview of our progress on some key strategic areas. In his address, Chair Dennis Kuzyna talked about our 4-point plan for strengthening our government relations work across the country. Let me just share with you how we've progressed against that plan. First, HRAI committed to build the resources needed to be an effective voice for the HVACR industry with governments at the federal, provincial, and municipal level. Building resources here really means hiring the right people, and HRAI has made some very positive moves in the past year. Just over a year ago, HRAI hired Dorothy McCabe for its newly created role of Government Relations Specialist for Ontario. Focused exclusively on government policies, programs, and regulations in Ontario, this new position allowed HRAI to provide more dedicated attention to the lengthy list of regulatory concerns in the province, while diverting other resources to the needs of members in other parts of the country. HRAI has also identified the province of British Columbia as a priority for membership service and growth, and we wanted to lead the membership value proposition with a strong government relations emphasis. This is a province in which there are notable policy directions being taken by governments, provincial and municipal, that warrant attention from the industry. To assist in building the provincial presence that it needs, HRAI brought on Victoria Cross to be our BC representative. In its immediate GR staffing plans, HRAI had not originally included the province of Quebec as a priority, partly due to the relatively small number of members in the province, but also because HRAI's traditional preference to work through or alongside existing provincial associations such as CITAF and CMMTQ. However, the flare-up of a single regulatory issue, namely a dramatically amended halocarbon phase-down regulation with major repercussions for manufacturers, caused a rethinking of that decision. Through an extension of our contractual arrangement with IPA, HRAI picked up the services of Carlos Godoy, a seasoned and deeply connected GR specialist in the province based in Quebec City and Montreal. These investments in new personnel have paid significant dividends, as we have been able to pursue priority issues on behalf of members at a much deeper level. Dorothy, Victoria, and Carlos have become valued members of our government relations team and have better positioned HRAI to act on behalf of members to take on the many challenges that confront the industry. I should add here that HRAI continues to rely on the valuable service of Impact Public Affairs in Ottawa to create connections with relevant political leaders, to develop issues briefs, and to follow through on openings for further dialogue wherever they appear. The IPA team has become a helpful aid to extending HRAI's political reach in Ottawa. A second element of our GR plan was to develop the capability of the association to engage both with the administrative and political channels of government across the country. As we always have, we continue to engage with government bureaucrats at all levels on technical files that matter to the industry. But now more than ever, we're also engaging with the elected officials who set the direction for policies and legislation. And this past fiscal year, we took it to another level. We had done days on Parliament Hill in Ottawa before, but as you may recall, it does seem like a long time ago, 2019 was an election year, so we had to change gears a bit. In the run-up to the 2019 election, HRAI rolled out a grassroots candidate engagement program, which allowed members across the country to connect with local federal election candidates from all parties. We prepared information kits with speaking points related to the key issues that HRAI has been working on at the federal level, and about 30 members volunteered to participate. In addition, HRAI staff met on multiple occasions prior to the election campaign with policy platform advisors to each of the 3 major political party leaders, and we made recommendations that resonated with each of them. In the wake of the election, HRAI continued to engage with all the relevant newly appointed federal ministers, as well as opposition party leaders. Indeed, HRAI has started to have some significant influence within all of these departments, not only as a result of talking with senior bureaucrats, but also with ministers and their advisors. Where it makes sense to do so, we align our messaging with allied industry groups like HRI, CIPH, MCA Canada, and others, and also sometimes under the umbrella of Efficiency Canada. In British Columbia, HRAI partnered with MCA BC, CIPH, and TECA in the first ever Day at the Legislature last December, where we met with several senior government ministers as well as a number of MLAs from the opposition. And similarly in Ontario, just before the world changed, we held a successful Queen's Park Day on March 2nd. This level of political engagement is helping to create a higher level of awareness about the industry and the association than has ever been seen before. A third element of our GR plan has been to streamline the areas of focus for the association's government relations work to guide our activities. In an industry as diverse and multifaceted as ours, this is a very difficult challenge. However, we have started to refine the focus of our efforts to a smaller set of priorities, ones we believe have meaning for the great majority of members and that can be acted on effectively. While we continue to monitor and act on a host of regulatory files that come up and that affect the day-to-day business of our members, we also have begun to apply more focused time and energy on proactive initiatives designed to set the agenda for political leaders. In the interest of time, for now, let me just tell you about our current top 3 federal government relations priorities. First, we're working to ensure that the HVACR industry is well positioned to influence and benefit from the actions of the federal government towards meeting the climate change mitigation goals of the Pan-Canadian framework. Even with the shift in focus to addressing the pandemic, the federal government has not forgotten its commitment to meeting those targets, and our industry is in a strong position to advise on policy options and to act on them. Second, we're advocating for the implementation of a workforce training and adjustment fund for skilled tradespeople that will fund the process of industry retraining or learning new skills that will deliver advanced, energy efficient, low carbon solutions to the marketplace. Tied to this is a fundamental need to attract more people into the trades in general, but a big part of the focus now is on right skilling for the future. And third, we're applying pressure in all of our discussions with the federal and provincial governments to ensure that they remain committed to the principles of regulatory harmonization that were declared under the Canada-United States Regulatory Cooperation Council and the Canada Free Trade Agreement. This area covers a range of regulations, including refrigerant phase-down regulations, energy efficiency regulations, provincial trade and fuel safety certifications, building code, and more. And finally, the fourth element of our plan is a goal to ensure that HRAI members are more fully engaged in the government relations work of the association. This is still very much a work in progress. Through our various issues-based committees, our Days on the Hill, and our grassroots engagement, HRAI has reached out and involved members in GR efforts to a greater extent than we ever have in the past, but we can do much better. Over the next year, look forward to new tactics for engagement that we will be rolling out to involve members in hearing about, commenting on, and helping to direct us on the issues that are of immediate concern to your business. Stay tuned for more on this in the months ahead. I can't complete this report without touching on the elephant in the room, the one that's so tiny we can't even see it, but whose effects have transformed our lives so profoundly. As the news of a new virus and its implications started to come into focus in March of this year, HRAI had to adapt as every other business did. You've heard already what HRAI had to do operationally to minimize the damages to the association. I'll talk a bit now about how the pandemic altered our government relations work in some very significant and ultimately positive ways. In the early days, as we were just getting our bearings, most of HRAI's work was focused on ensuring that industry members were fully up to speed on the rollout of government support programs for displaced workers and businesses affected by the downturn in business activities. Where necessary, we worked to get clarifications on business support programs to share with members via webinars and through almost daily updates to the COVID-19 Resource Center. When and where programs showed gaps, HRAI communicated industry concerns to government. These gaps were addressed and programs refined to meet industry needs. At the provincial level, once new safety protocols for customer contact were introduced, HRAI reached out to all provincial premiers, stating the case for including HVACR in the list of essential services. And for the most part, all provinces accepted that advice without resistance. To facilitate industry access to online training during the slowdown, HRAI secured financial support from NRCan for the delivery of HRAI's industry training. A similar arrangement was made with Fortis BC, not only in support of HRAI certification training, but also towards the development and rollout of a new course aimed at guiding contractors on how to engage their customers in meaningful conversations about ventilation and IAQ in the context of their fears about COVID. While the heat of summer breathed life back into the industry, into that part of the industry focused on the residential market, new concerns emerged over the summer months about the longer-term impacts of the virus on the reopening and occupation of commercial and institutional buildings of all types: office buildings, schools, theaters, restaurants, and retail operations. Accordingly, HRAI laid plans for the creation of an advisory council on healthy, sustainable indoor environments in commercial and institutional buildings, which will be comprised of industry representatives, representing our 3 boards of directors, stakeholders, academics, and health professionals. By accessing and reviewing the latest scientific and technical information, the Advisory Council will offer evidence-based thought leadership regarding the role of HVAC systems in the spread or containment of harmful pathogens like COVID-19. The Council will focus on documenting, developing, and communicating best practices for ventilation in commercial institutional buildings, and will disseminate evidence-based information and advice where appropriate to the public, to building operators, business owners, and government decision makers. This council will be chaired by Joe Mashinsky of Arvin Air Systems and a member of the Contractors Division Board of Directors. Like many other business associations, HRAI has also turned its attention to engaging with government on how best to reignite the economy when conditions are right. For many in government, this means more stimulus spending. HRAI will be working hard to ensure that the design, timing, and rollout of stimulus programs will meet the needs of the HVACR industry, and this will be a major focus for the months ahead. It's worth noting here that the elevated political engagement work we've done over the past several years has paid dividends during this time of crisis. Except for some new audiences, we didn't have to tell everyone who HRAI is and who we represent. This allowed us to get decisions and actions in a more timely fashion. And as I noted at the beginning, the strange new circumstances over the past 6 months have dictated that we reach out to and talk with a number of new audiences, with new messages, using new engagement techniques. Our new audiences included Health Canada, various provincial ministries of health, ministries of long-term care, ministers of education, school boards and associations representing school boards, teachers, restaurants, commercial buildings, building owners, and many others. Building on the status of our industry as an essential service, our messaging to all of these audiences has been some variation on our ability as an industry to deliver meaningful solutions for Canadians in relation to the deadly pandemic. Looking ahead, we will be seeking to engage even more deeply with federal and provincial government plans for the economic recovery. Building back better is the popular phrase. We will be leveraging the new focus on commercial ventilation and indoor air quality to create opportunities for the industry at all levels. In sum, I believe that HRAI's investments in government and stakeholder relations area in upping its game will generate major returns in the years ahead, as HVACR technologies become recognized more widely by governments and other decision makers and the public for their importance in keeping Canadians comfortable, safe, and healthy while reducing energy use and carbon emissions. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, Martin. So now I just would ask if anyone has any questions and answers. If you, we'll give you a couple moments if you'd like to type them in the chat box there, or the question and answer box, sorry. Just give it a couple minutes.
So Caroline, it looks like we have a quiet group today.
Yep.
So I will, I'll pick it up here and conclude the meeting. So thank you very much for participating today. This concludes this year's annual Wholesalers AGM. I would like to thank everybody for participating today, making the time to fit it in. I would also like to thank some of the staff here at HRAI who have made this all happen, specifically Loretta and Sadia for being the people behind the scenes to make all of this happen. And of course, we had a number of on-screen personalities today, Dennis, Martin, Frank, Caroline, and Bill. So thank you to all of them for making this all happen. And I'd also like to point out as well to everyone again, David Weisham, the Merit Award winner. He'll be featured again at the contractor meeting this afternoon. We do still have the contractor AGM happening later today for any of you that might want to participate. This meeting was supposed to happen live in Victoria, and as we all know, this all got shut down in the spring. We have been able to get the legal requirements of the AGM accomplished through this virtual setting. Thank you very much for participating. Remember, you will be receiving a survey that we'd appreciate you completing. Remember as well, HRAI is here to serve you, no matter how large, how small the issue might be. On screen, you will see a number of our key people and their contact information. Reach out if you need us. Thanks again. Have a great day. Take care.